Okay, this is part 2. I ran over, so I had to trim the beginning of the previous section. So remember, this is for AB Biology 223, Russell iGenetics. We're doing problem 1414 and 1415. So we've concluded that the black body must be recessive. So now we have, at this point, we have the orange mutant allele is dominant, and the black body is recessive. Okay, so now the question will become, we didn't even read what the question is asking us. We're looking at a situation, and that's perfectly proper. Her offspring had the following phenotypes. Single male having red eyes and black body was mated successively with 3. Let me go on. Each of the following blah blah blah, and then okay, there's what explain why none of the crosses show identical phenotypic frequencies, and then state whether each mutant phenotype is dominant or recessive. So we've done that part. And notice that when you have questions like this, whether in an exam or in a book, the questions may be divided up into A, B, C, D, but that doesn't mean that your answer would be divided up into those categories, and or even if they were divided up in those categories, that would be the order at which the answer would appear. Are the loci for orange and black linked or unlinked? That's what we were just thinking. Are they X-linked or autosomal? Notice they don't mention Y-linked because that's clearly not. A diagram, the linkage arrangement of orange and black for each of the 4 females used in these crosses. That means 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we've decided orange must be dominant, the black body must be recessive, that 0 must be heterozygous at both loci, and that the males that she were crossed with, one of them presumably, we don't need to, this is obvious, I think it'll come out later, that at least one of them, some of the father's a wild type, and the other must be, I'm just getting confused about a point that I thought of earlier, and there's some complexity to this problem and I disagree with the book answer, so I keep on getting distracted by this. And one of the males must be at least a carrier for the black body recessive allele. Okay, so now the question is then, are they linked or unlinked? And how do we see that here? Can we see that here? Orange, gray. So let's imagine these setups here. So we can do this. We can say, if they're unlinked, if unlinked, then what are we going to get? We're going to have the female producing at the O locus 2 gametes. The male, let's assume, is 1. We're going to have 50% orange eyes, 50% red eye. And the black, I've told you, explained why the female has to be a carrier. It shows up more obviously later. So she would be producing this, and one of the males can be wild type. I can do it in the same Punnett square, but let's keep them separate. And one of the males, some of the males must be wild type, in which case we would see we'd see all gray. That's a Britishism with the E in the book. And in the case of the whatever frequency of, and then from the father, which could be rare, from those stored sperm she uses for fertilization, there's going to be 1/4 will have a black body. Okay, so what we'll see then is that we can't really see anything about linkage here, because the proportions that we have that we might think to use for linkage are obscured by not knowing what the parent what the fathers were and what ratio of insemination there was. So we can't conclude linkage yet. Let's continue then. So the single male, let's continue now. So the single male, that was page 1. The single male having red eyes and a black body. So red eyes and a black body. So we know that the male, red eyes and a black body, that means he must be at the O locus wild type and at the B locus black. What we don't know is whether they're linked or not. So it could be, and this is the case where he could be this, or he could be this. He is mated to 3 of his siblings having orange eyes and gray bodies, females 1, 2, and 3. So the females, so remember female 0, there was the mother, she was orange, and it doesn't explicitly say that she was gray, I think, but of course that's the wild type, and we would be told otherwise. So female 1 is, let's read this again, female 1, 2, and 3, orange eyes and gray bodies. So they're all 3 of them are like this. So all females are like this. So that means that we know that the mother must have been, if unlinked, we know she was this, and if the genes are linked, she must be, whoops, I'm making a mistake here. She has she must be a carrier, or we would not have seen the black-bodied male that they use for the mating. So she could be this, or she could be in trans rather than in cis. So cis and trans of this. So she could be this or this, linked in this. She can only be one of these. Now, the 3 daughters that they describe, though, need not be all the same. And clearly, we see from the matings, where the father is all the same, the females, for each of the females, they have a different proportions. Therefore, we have to consider that the females are different. Whoops, I'm leaving something out. Or she could also be, notice she has gray eyes. So sorry, I'm going a little fast here. So the female 0, the first female described, if these are unlinked, she could be this, this. Now the 1, 2, and 3 have the same phenotype, but they could be different genotypes. So let's discuss this. If unlinked, we could imagine that they could be like their mother, or they need not be a carrier of the heterozygous at the B locus. They can only be this or this. There can only be 2 kinds. There can only be 2 kinds. They can either be this or this. And if we look at this, we see that the proportions fall in 3 categories. So in these matings with one male, we have three different, so right away we're going to rule out linkage. So if we're going to say not linked, because we can only get two kinds of females in that case. If linked, then we have the possibility of three kinds of females. We can have this, we can have, so I'm going to not say which one is which, because we don't know yet, but let's consider this. So we have linked female, orange, but again, don't forget to look at the question, orange eyes and gray body, orange and gray. So that means the genotypes they could be. Could they be, so let me exclude some of those other ones. So they could be gray, so they could be heterozygous at the orange locus and homozygous wild type at the black locus, or she could be mutant heterozygous at both loci in a cis arrangement or in a trans arrangement. These are the three possibilities. And you might ask me why one of them couldn't be dominant. Okay, I guess there's heterozygous. So is there a possibility of one of them being orange over orange? Something like this. And we can rule that out, because if any of those cases, they wouldn't have any, they would all be orange. And we see that we have orange, red, orange, red, orange, red in the frequency. So we can rule that out, and that would seem to be unlikely. Okay, so these are the three possible females of this genotype. So now we've progressed to the point where we know the alleles, we know that the mother, now notice the mother could have been this or this, so because she can undergo crossing over, she can produce by crossing over all of these, right? This kind of arrangement could lead to the parental this, or this, I just did that, yeah, or, what am I doing? Or this, right? She can make four different gametes, so she can make a gamete. So that's so the male can give this gamete, and the female could give this one or this one. So there's not a problem. I mean, one can construct a problem like this where there's a contradiction, and the point is that all of these genotypes must be possible from her. So everything makes sense here. So we have three possible phenotypes for females, 1, 2, and 3. And the father, we know, now that we know it's linked, we can go back and cross this one out, and we know that those are going to be crossed to a homozygous wild type at I and homozygous mutant at the body. Okay, so that's a major accomplishment, and we have addressed the question. I have to stop the video because it runs out of 50 minutes. Are they linked or unlinked? Okay, so they are linked. The question is, are they X-linked or not? And we'll address that next.